jokes and everything that's going on.
I get so excited.
Yeah, it's really awesome.
Saturday is like my favorite. Because it's like, I mean, like, I like to play the game, and I'm sure you do the same thing. For us, it's kind of like watching high school movies, like with your class. And I'll be sitting there when I watch One Piece. I'm like, it's Colleen, it's Brina, it's Tia, and I go through this whole thing. I'm like, oh, I didn't know Steffi was in this episode. Oh, I didn't know Arbor Sally was in this episode. It's like, see if you can pick everybody out with their voices. And then Soul Eater comes on, I play the same game again, and then the same thing happens with Sword Art Online. So I'm like, you sound amazing! And we're like messaging people, and I'm sure, because I'm a nerd about it, and I will call people at any point of the day, all day long. Like I've sent Bryce, I'm like, Bryce, I found a Kirito in the dealer's room, and I'm sending him all these pictures. I've done it to Todd too. I'm sure at some point they're like, what, is she live? Yes, I am.
So I hope we answered your question. Oh,
yeah. Sorry, I'm so distracted by like the math.
Yeah, we probably should have been like, hey, let everybody in. Well, thanks very much for the answers. Hopefully we see you in another season. Yeah, I hope so too.
For everybody that's just now coming in, I'm Jeremy Lee and I play Awesome and Sword Art Online.
I'm Bryce Patton looking at Kirito.
Thank you.
And we're still waiting for folks in. I mean, why don't we just keep
we'll
talking?
just keep answering questions and then we can like repeat and hopefully we can stay a couple more minutes later and hang out.
Yeah.
Hi, Jeremy. You said there was a devil with me, I guess.
Yes.
I have yet to find it.
Okay, we gotta search this.
There's a doppelganger out there? I guess.
There's a couple, because I signed and I was like, I think I've met you before today. And he's like, no, there's like 4 Wills here. There's like 5 Nicks. And like 6 Matthews. And it's funny because like 3 of them look very similar. But he has somebody, so I told him he either needs to kill them or make them evil twins. But for the other one that's his doppelganger, I mean, you deal with it your own way.
So it's a free for all.
It's a free for all. It's a battle. Fight to the death.
I have 2 questions. When you guys were auditioning, were you auditioning for multiple roles or just one in general?
I auditioned for multiple. I don't know about you, but I auditioned for 3.
Okay.
They only sent me 1 role to read for. I only had 1 shot on this one. I don't know if they thought of me for the role. I mean, I know a lot of people read for the part, but I only got 1 shot.
Did you also go back for a callback, or did you just send in the MP3 and that was it?
I MP3 and got cast.
Cool. Because for this show, I got paranoid because normally when I go into Funimation, we don't send in MP3s, we go into audition at the studio, and we go in and audition 1 time, and we can pick 2 or 3 roles, and sometimes they'll say, read specifically for this role, and that's it. Like, normally you find out in like 3 to 5 days if you got cast and you're the lead role, you're recording 10 to 6, like a full day, immediately. But for this show, I auditioned for Asuna, Elizabeth, and Yulie, which was weird. And then they called me probably a week later, and I was like, well, I didn't hear anything, I didn't book it. And then they called me a week later and asked me to come back in for a callback. And I went and read again for all 3 with Hidaway, the producer, and with Alex, the director. And then there were a couple other girls that were in the waiting room right after to go and audition. And I think I might have had another callback, which was weird that I had callbacks for VO, because that doesn't always happen. Normally they just cast off of an MP3. But I have had for other series, animated series, for other projects that they'll call me back in and they'll have me read with like 3 or 4 other voices because they want to see if we can ad-lib off of each other. But there wasn't anybody else in the booth, it was just me reading the same scene. So it was
Okay.
interesting.
My second question is, if you're not pressed for time, can I take a picture after the panel?
Yeah, totally.
Thank you.
You bet.
Should we do like a back and forth? Because we do have a second
Oh,
mic
yeah.
over here. Even though you don't want to do it. Don't do it yet.
go for Asna or Lifa?
For Asuna or Lifa? Well, is Lifa my sister or my
Yeah.
That's my cousin. Yes, my cousin. So Asuna.
You live in close quarters, though. She's kind of
Yeah,
like.
she's like a sister. I mean, she's like the first cousin, right?
I was gonna say, like, choose wisely, because there are some things that happen later on in the show. Like, all the women be like, wow, glad to see that meant a lot to you. You know.
Well, and considering Asuna's sitting right next to
Yeah.
me.
Right here.
Those little hands
Oh,
can
God.
slap really hard.
It's like groping her. My bad.
Thanks.
Are there any anime series that you've watched that you haven't worked on that you really enjoy?
Like way in the past or currently?
Currently, in the past, anytime.
I grew up watching Dragon Ball Z. Yeah, such such an awesome show. And right now, I'm actually watching Attack on Titan. A lot of people are watching that show. It's really, really good. Really good show.
All right.
I loved Sailor Moon. And I also, like, currently, I know it's not an animated show, but I love My Little Pony. And if I got called to audition for My Little Pony, I would first cry, and then second of all, like, work myself into an anxiety attack to even prepare for the audition, and then pray to the voice acting gods to just be able to play even a butterfly or something. Just to work in that, like, universe would be cool. And then what was the other one that I was thinking of? I don't know, I'll think of it later. But those are like two of the main ones that I'm like, oh, please let me be a pony. Mommy, when I grow up, I want to be a pony. I don't want a pony, I just want to be a pony.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Alright, hey there. When I read manga, I have this certain voice in my head for each character. I mean, everybody does. And then, quite commonly, I'm sure with just about everybody, you watch the anime and think, is not the voice I imagined for that character at all. Have you ever watched an anime and thought, hey, that someone else could have done a better job, you could have done a better job, or just felt this voice did not match at all?
I mean, I might think that, but my opinion doesn't matter. Other people have a vision of what the voice should be, and there's a reason I feel that those actors are playing those particular roles. Maybe they do something really, really well, and maybe they don't do everything perfect for that character, but maybe something clicked. Someone must have seen something to cast them in that role. So I might think that, but my opinion doesn't matter.
I've looked at like the grand scheme of like casting and things like that, and when I might like look at a show and be like, man, I would love to work on the show, and then I don't get cast. I'm like, why didn't I get cast? I thought I did really well for that audition. I really loved it. Like I felt like I really connected with that character. But then I hear all of the voices together, and I'm like, my voice had no place in that cast. Like it just wouldn't have fit. It competed too much with somebody else. It was too similar, or just as a whole, that group was amazing together. And the example that I always use, and hang with me before you like go, what? Whatever, everybody gets all mad. I'm like the cast of Twilight. Settle down. Okay.
We're settled.
The cast of Twilight, individually, they're not that great. Together, now like in certain projects, they're really good in certain projects. Kristen Stewart in The Runaways, that was a really great movie for her. But like, as a whole in that film, if you would put anybody else in any of those roles, they would have stuck out. One actress would have been like really great, or the actor would have been really great. But like together, they all make sense, and they complement each other, and they made a whole lot of money, and they sold a lot of T-shirts, and they're really pretty. So they're all the same height. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, awkward and it wouldn't have worked as much as it worked. And for like dubbing and stuff like that, we are working with adapting from a Japanese, so oftentimes the Japanese client has a say. Sometimes they don't, sometimes they do. And sometimes the Japanese client will listen and say, this person sounds exactly like the character, but I don't really like that there's like a seductive nature to their voice. Because I had a director that I went in and read who was like, I'm going to cast her for this super seductive character. And I was like, no. I can't do that. I just can't. Colleen Clinkenbeard does that really well. You should call her. He was like, no. We want it to sound like really cute, like she's like 5 or 6. And I was like, so it was so awkward. We had to find a way with the English director and the Japanese director to make it like sound legal and make everybody happy. But I'm sure a lot of people listened to that and were like, that's not what I heard in my head when that character was played, but we had to appease both cultural standards, and sometimes there has to be a balance. Otherwise people will feel really uncomfortable.
I'd imagine you run into a lot of situations where you can't help but respect the people that did what they did in a way that they portrayed their role.
Yeah, totally. Just like Twilight.
Debatable, but thank you.
I mean, the guy, Taylor Lautner, had to work out a lot to pull that off. And probably not eat a lot of ice cream. For that, dude, I respect you. And if I meet you, I'll buy you a cupcake in celebration of your sacrifice.
Hey, you can wait.
How's it going?
Hey, I hope you'll put up with me because I got a 3-part question for y'all.
Okay.
Okay, first, prior to auditioning for your respective roles in Sword Art Online, were either of you familiar with the franchise in any way, shape, or form?
Yes. I watched the entire series in Japanese.
Right, wait, prior to auditioning or recording?
Prior to auditioning,
I've heard of the show. I hadn't watched the entire show, but I've heard of it and kind of caught wind of how cool it was.
alright. Okay, second question. Kirito versus Rin Okamura, Asuna versus Shauna. Who'd win?
Wait, inside a video game or for mine, inside the game or not inside the game? Because that's the determining factor.
Both scenarios.
Okay, inside the game, Kirito, because he's a god in the game. And outside the game, Rin, because he'll light Kirito on fire in maybe 10 seconds.
I think it's a very similar situation for Asuna and Shauna. I think Shauna would be totally confused by the game, and she'd be like over it. So I think she'd lose in the game. I think she would probably win outside the universe. Oh, that's a spoiler. So I can't answer that way.
Go ahead, we got YouTube.
Yeah, so I'm just gonna go with that. Outside of the game.
And the third and final one. I'm going to feel really terrible for this, but I'm going to take one for the team. Are either of you familiar with Chapter 16.5 of the original novel?
16 and a half. Now, I've heard of what happens. And it's not... Let's see what Google says about it.
Yeah, very specific. The phone blows up.
I just pulled up something and it says, can someone give me a link to chapter 16.5?
Someone try to find it.
I just want the pictures, not the text. Yes, found it.
panel, so we won't be reading chapter 16.5 today.
You know that one of the conventions that we go to in the future together, they're going to be like, so 18 plus 5, 18 plus 5. You must be 18 plus 5 to be in the 16.5 reading.
Is it worse than 50 Shades?
Panel in the future. We'll just read it.
You guys should have just called it 50 Shades of SAO.
Yes! Headcanon accepted.
Well, now we know.
You guys probably will do a reading of it in the future.
What?
So you guys probably will do a reading of it in the future.
You're starting. I don't know. No promises can be made there. If we ever do a reading of this in the future, it will certainly not end up online. We'll just put it that way. Hold on a second. So you didn't want us to see it, but you want it to be online? How much sense does that make, friends? One of these things does not work without the other.
She can't put it down.
I just can't even.
Skip to the very end.
No!
We're gonna have to read this to really enjoy it. Can't just go skip to the end. It's no
No,
fun.
you gotta get your plush toy and open it. That'll be what's online. It'll just be the two plush figures. For me, the most uncomfortable thing in the world. Okay. Well, now we know what 16.5 is.
Yeah, standard version 16.5.
But I know, if we ever posted a link of it, you would be the person sharing it with everybody. Yes?
Oh, that's profiling.
Every single one of you said don't look at it, and then every single one of you are like, post it online. It's always the person that says like, oh, I've never seen it, and then they're the ones that are sharing it the most. Am I wrong? That's all I'm saying. Like, no, I hate those happy hats, and then you look at their Facebook and it's all happy hats. Oh gosh. Okay.
I love 50 Shades of Sword Art Online.
That's the title of the panel where we read.
We're going there.
We have two conventions together, right?
We'll see what happens.
That'll be before we watch Sword Art Online at 2 a.m. It's leading up to 2 a.m. It's read 16.5.
Well, thanks for putting up with me, guys.
Thank you. The question.
Thanks for
for introducing me.
opening the door. I didn't know. It's your turn, yes.
Okay, all right. So I have 3 questions, but they're not going to be as disturbing as that one, you know. But I gotta take another one for the team as well. But that's the last one.
Okay.
So my first question is this: I've been meaning to ask this to every voice actor. Well, it did come to me today. But when you guys go for audition and you guys get the concept for the character and all, do you guys, after you've done like the first episode or work with it for 5 minutes, do you guys feel like a bond with the character, like that's like a piece of you, like do you have any like relations with it? Like for example, like, oh, I remember, back in that day I used to be like that, or have anything in common with the character or anything when you guys do your auditions?
Absolutely. I mean, even when I do an audition and I just read the sides, there are certain aspects of the character where I'm like, oh, this is so cute, I love this, I can totally relate to this. And that's what makes acting so hard in general, is anytime you go to an audition, you have to create a character in order to do your job well. But at the same time, that makes it agonizing as you wait to see if they liked it enough to hire you. So it's kind of, I made a joke once that it was like writing a poem and like giving it to somebody that you love, and you write like, check yes or or no if you like it, and then you just wait for that person, and sometimes you never get an answer back, and sometimes you get the no, and you're like, oh, that sucks. So it's like daily rejection every day. But every character that I've ever auditioned for, whether I've ended up playing them or not, I always have that bond with.
Yeah, sometimes you have to make things up to bond with them. Like, you're not going to bond with every character out there, but you figure out how to connect to them. So even if it's making up some sort of story to get a similar emotion, or thinking back to something that's totally random that made you angry, to get into an angry scene, or you find a connection.
All right, so the second question, this is for you personally. What is your favorite pony?
My favorite pony is Twilight Sparkle.
Shoot, I thought you were going to say Rainbow Dash.
Everybody has told me that I sound like Rainbow Dash, just in my instance. I actually went to order at a fast food restaurant, and someone says, the girl was like, "Hi, has anyone ever told you that you sound like Rainbow Dash?" And I said, yeah, once or twice. She goes, "'Cause you do. You should get into voice acting." I said, well, unfortunately, Rainbow Dash is already taken, so if that's all I meant to do. And she goes, "I didn't even think about that. That would be so terrible for you." And I said, yeah.
All right, and here's my third one. Now, this one take for the team. Now, everybody's been wondering this, and they put the burden on my shoulders, so I'm going to go ahead and lift it up. Now, the thing is that we've been having theories about Sword Art Online once when we first saw it, okay? Are you familiar with a Japanese horror film called Battle Royale?
Yeah.
Are you familiar with Dark Hat?
Yeah.
I am.
Okay, so what happened is everybody said that Sword Art Online is a hybrid between Battle Royale and Dot Hack. We just wondering, where did the real inspirations come from for Sword Art?
Well, I heard the creator speak a little bit about this. He's a gamer. I mean, a hardcore gamer.
He's on top of it. Yeah,
Oh, yeah. Yeah, I mean, he plays World of Warcraft, and there was another game that he was really, really into.
He lives, I hope.
I'm not sure which one it was, but he's a hardcore gamer, and that's why a lot of the things throughout the series are very authentic. I mean, they're gaming terms that are used in the show because the creator is a gamer. So I don't know where he got his inspiration for the creation of the game. I mean, I can see. I'm not familiar with the film, but I worked on Dot Hack.
Right.
I'm Shugo in one of the Dot Hack Legend of the Twilight.
Okay.
And I see how they're similar. I mean, they both go into a game, but they're very, very different as well.
Yeah.
So I'm not sure how he was inspired or where that came from.
Yeah, because I'm about to say that when I first saw it, right, my friends, we do a bridge series. Have you guys heard of Dragon Ball Z and Yu-Gi-Oh! Bridge? Yeah. Okay, those guys are my friends. Those guys are my friends, and what happened was that we saw another group did a Sword Art Online, and I posted, and I was like, wait a minute, isn't Sword Art Online a hybrid between Battle Royale and Dot Hack? So, if you lose in the game, your head just, just explode. Yeah, so I just wondered, just to get that theory out of the way, and I want to try to talk to him, do something.
Email records. Email the creator. Well, thank you.
Hi. Hi. What was your reaction to knowing that you were going to be in Sword Art Online?
I was super excited because I'd read the show. I'd read the show. It's gonna be one of those days. Yes, I did. I saw the show, and everybody had been telling me about it. So then, when I found out I got cast, this is the first show that I've worked on in LA. So it's incredibly special to me for that reason also, because I felt like I finally cracked into the LA voice acting world. I've worked on a couple games before this, but this was my first show, and then as I was finding out what a big show it was, I was like, oh, this is awesome. But I was super excited to work on it, and then when I found out it was a big show, I started to get a little scared, because this is a different character from what I've normally played, even though it's a redhead with a sword, and I've done that a couple times. But she's a little different, and it's a different company, so I didn't know how everybody was going to react to that. But Brave Awesome, it was kind of like a very surreal weekend for me. Because it was just like Sword Art Online everywhere. It was like a Sword Art Online Wizard of Oz. I did not feel like I was in a normal world anymore.
And I got one more question. If you could be in My Little Pony and you could get Twilight, who else would you be?
I would like to be Twilight Sparkle's baby sister, or just anything. I'll play a lizard, I'll play a butterfly, a bird, a little girl, a rock even. If it could be a colorful rock, like a tie-dye rock, that would be great. But, you know, plain brown rock, I'll take it. We could just put a bow on it, that'd be great.
Rock with bow.
Yeah, rock with bow, share immediately. Yes, come on, I'm a rock with a bow.
Thanks.
I've just been recently watching and getting into Sword Art Online, and I was wondering, do you find that there's anything about the show that they could handle a little bit better?
I heard, I haven't read the novels, the light novels, but I heard there's a lot that was skipped over. I mean, a ton. There's time jumps that are crazy, you know, while they're in Minecraft, and I wish that they would go back, maybe, and reboot and start over and go through all the things that they kind of jumped, because there's a ton that happens that they don't really go into. That would be cool, but they didn't have much time to do it.
Right. My understanding was from communication I've had with people, and I don't know if they're speculating, but they said that the reason that the light novels were more in depth and the anime wasn't as much is because they weren't sure that the series was going to do well, so they thought they'd compact everything and just like send it on its way. And then they were surprised by what a huge success it was. I think the biggest thing that I've heard other people complain about, and it's definitely something that, I wish there was a little more of, is that as soon as Asuna and Kirito kind of get together, Asuna kind of like takes a back seat to being like a warrior, and I kind of wish there was a little more of that. Because just because anybody gets married or like has a family doesn't mean that like a female doesn't stop being a badass. So, I mean, I hope not. I'm gonna be getting married soon. Like, then I not have to use my katana again. That's
You'll
not
still
gonna
be
happen.
badass.
Thanks,
You'll always
guys.
have your sword.
Oh my gosh. And have my bow on my bow. So yeah, that would be the only thing I would want to change.
Hi.
Can you see yourself as your Sword Art Online character? Like, you could be as nice as they were in the game.
I don't know if I could ever be that good at video games.
You could be that good.
I could?
Yeah.
I better start playing. More and more and more. Beta testing and, and never leaving. I don't know. Seriously, I don't know if I could ever be as gnarly as Kirito is.
I sure could try, but there would probably be a couple moments where I'd be ultra girly, and then I don't know. I have gotten cast on camera and in VO a lot as like somebody who's really great in battle, and I think it's just because I sound like I can do the sounds and I can sound like I'm good in battle, but I think I might suck. Like my brother took me to a shooting range once, and I was like, I'll take the smallest gun, please. Like I don't need any of that like after effect thing, jarring my shoulder, please. So I don't know. I definitely could not cook like Asuna, but if I was in the game, I would definitely make use of the just like.
Oh yeah, that's
Feast
super
is here, fantastic, great. I slaved over this. Eat it and enjoy. That's yeah. But other than that, my cooking skill level sucks right now.
I want this thing. Is this the menu to come down?
Oh yeah, it's like
I do that all the
I
time.
could use that all through high school and middle school to be like, oh, erase from situation? Yes, thank you. I'm not here. Ace test, great. I want a menu for life, absolutely.
Yeah.
Get out of traffic. Find a parking spot. Done.
Thanks.
Now I'm like thinking about the menu.
Just pull it down.
We should start doing that.
two-part question. Your name pronounced Bryce, right?
Bryce, yes.
Okay. It's spelled kind of differently than most people.
I know, I have a Y.
It's the Y.
Throws everybody off.
I know. But I had a question. You remember? You might remember, or you might not. Do you remember the RPG Radiata stories?
Yeah.
I was gonna ask, were you disappointed that they never made a sequel? Because both endings were kind of vague enough that they could have done a ton with it. They never did anything with it.
I mean, I have no control over that stuff. I always hope for more work. I love doing this stuff, and you just want to do more and more, and just live in the studio. So yeah, I mean, it's a bummer that they didn't make more, because it seemed like an awesome game. I didn't play it through, and it was a while ago. I think I was about 15 when I worked on that. But yeah, I mean, it would be awesome if they would have made another one.
Right, and the next question, and this one is related to season 2. Now, you guys were just talking about like criticisms and all that. Did you guys think season 1 of Sword Art Online was better than season 2? Because there's a lot of people point out there's a lot of issues in the second season. And while I enjoyed the series as a whole, I will admit I wasn't too fond of the second season.
And you're talking about the after the art versus the fairy art.
Fairy art.
Without spoiling too much.
Yes.
I think that comes from how epic and gnarly the first arc is. I mean, there's a ton on the line. And there's a lot on the line on the second arc, but it happens in 3 days.
I mean, there was like one moment, I don't think this is it's not spoilers, there's one fight he was in, the one-on-one fight before the finale, which was Eugene. That was the only real climax fight they had, and then there was the finale. Which the finale had a good build-up, but then it ended on just kind of a cut-off.
I enjoyed the second time. I really liked it. And I liked it even more. I said this earlier. I watched it in Japanese, and when I saw it in English, all the little nuances came out even further, and I really understood it more. So I really enjoyed it. And maybe when you guys see it in English, you'll enjoy it even more. That's what we hope for.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I like Einstein better for obvious reasons. I'm not gonna say.
I'm sure we don't want to play it.
Right.
Yeah. Thanks.
Hi, so what would your personal reactions be to be trapped in Minecraft? Like, would you be strong like your characters and go for it and try to become the top players, or would you kind of fall back like from shock or something?
I would definitely need a few days. Like the post when he's like, oh, hey, new rule change. You die in the game, you die in real life. I'd be like, wow, I need a couple days to like get this over. I don't do well with change, so I need a few moments.
I'd probably go out there and fight and probably run into a traffic guy. That would probably be me, because I'd just be like, all right, let's go! Hey man, how's it going?
I am pretty good. What's up, guys? Okay, so when you guys are performing your characters, do you believe it's more important to do it the way that you feel is right, or to copy your Japanese voice actors, like echo their performance?
For me, it's somewhere in between. If I just copied the Japanese actor, it would make no sense at all. It would just be awful. So what I try to find is a balance where you're not losing the original integrity of the series, of the Japanese show, but it has to be entertaining and make sense for the audience that's going to see it. So I find some sort of balance. It's not 100%, the way I would read every single line. There has to be some pull back to the original.
I think we definitely use the Japanese as a guide and follow the emotional subtext. But like you said, the American audiences are different, the cultural references are different. So since we have the great adapter, who's also our director, which was a bonus, that had scripted the lines and would say, now here's what's happening, how would you respond to it in this situation? And then he might say, okay, pull it back a little bit, I think she's a little more emotionally involved in the scene, or go for it, she's not holding back at all. So we have a guide as far as that goes, but we definitely do use the Japanese as kind of like a GPS for how we're gonna work the show. I have the weirdest metaphors for things, guys, and they all all lead back to Twilight, or Twilight Sparkle.
This question's for Jeremy.
Yes.
Now that you're working on an anime out in the LA area, is there any big difference in like either directorial styles or the technology used? Basically, has there been any kind of culture shock moving from doing VA in Texas as opposed to now doing VA work in Los Angeles?
Well, in Texas, I think the biggest difference, I grew up in Texas and I've been working in the business for 20 years now. So I spent 19 of those years in Texas working in voiceover for probably about 17 of those years. So I knew every company that worked on voiceover, industrial, or anything else in Dallas area. Funimation is the only company in Dallas area that does dubbing. I mean, there's like Sentai, which is in Houston, but I never worked with them. So when I went out to LA, the only culture shock has been, there's so many companies out there that work on so many different things. People do gaming mostly, they'll do motion capture, which there's not really a lot of big motion capture studios in Dallas. I think there might be one that does it every now and then. But because it's such a bigger range, the culture shock has been like, okay, so I have to go out and like reinvent myself again and try to introduce myself, since all of those people have known me since I was 7 or 8. Whereas now I'm having to reintegrate and try to figure out where my place is with other voice actors and what I can work on, what I am competitive with there. And so I'm grateful every day for Funimation, and I'm still working with them, especially with Fairy Tail and then with other shows that come up. But I would not be able to do half of the things that I've been doing in LA had it not been for the confidence of working on things at Funimation, because I was with them for, gosh, like 7 years. So, yeah, it's been crazy.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hello?
Sorry for that. I was going to ask if you read any of the light novels for the third game, but I guess you said you didn't read any. But I think that they actually beat out the first game in terms of the action, and Kirito is so much more badass. He's essentially a Jedi. But I was going to ask if around the studio, did you ever hear any rumors or anything about when they're going to release the animated version of the third, like Gale arc at all?
We don't know if they're making it or not.
Really?
We said, I mean, people I think were still walking in when we said this, but as voice actors, we're the last ones to know anything.
They don't trust us with important information.
I see.
And even if we did know, we couldn't tell you. So,
Which is why they don't tell us.
which is why
They knew we would.
we like to talk.
I mean, they hire us to talk, and then they want us to shut up? Gosh, confusing.
But,
Thank you.
but let's all hope that it comes out.
Yeah.
Because I'd love
Or
to see it.
program like forever.
Hi.
Hi.
I have one question and then a small favor.
Okay.
Can you guys handle a sword just as well as you can in the game or in the show?
You have to tell the story now.
Oh, God. Okay.
Jeremy owns a sword.
I do. I own, it's like a $900 katana. The best part is how I obtained it. Which was mentioned, they knew that Sword Art Online was coming out, and they knew that I had played a lot of Red Heads of Swords, so obviously they thought, well, let's do a fun sword panel with a guy who makes katanas, and then we'll teach everybody how to do a hands-on sword lesson. So he said, well, it's all based on height, and I didn't realize you were so small, so I'm going to give you the highest end sword that I have. And it's actually the sword, I can't remember the name of it right now, but I'm sure some of you will know. It's the ceremonial suicide sword. But the reference that I made was, well, first he hands it to me, and he says, I've used this to cut through a car door. And I was like, oh, good. Thank you. And he said it has to be based on my height, so in essence, my response was, great, so I need a letter opener because I'm a hobbit. Got it. Thank you. At the panel where I said that, everybody looked at me like I was nuts, so clearly Lord of the Rings references didn't fly. Anyway, I am going through the lesson. We learned that you have to keep the weapon blade up, because in incredible gentleman. And so you have to pop open the sword using your left hand. It was very difficult. Finally got it open. It took a huge amount of time because he's brand new. And I say this because as we're going through the lesson, I'm trying to be very responsible. My mom's standing right there, trying to be a good katana wielder. And the sword starts sliding out. And I panicked, and I wanted to be very discreet and not be a moron, so I caught it with my thumb. Oh. And so then I was like, oh God, I'm bleeding. And I didn't say anything, and I was like, I'm just gonna stand here. It's gonna stop. It'll be great. I just need to set this down. Well, this sweet girl in the panel goes, oh my God, she's bleeding, and I was like, oh. I murdered a person. And I was like, oh, good, see? There was blood all over my hands. It gets back to the head of the convention, like through telephone tag, that Sherry has sliced off her thumb. So she runs in like 10 minutes later, and she's like, where is it? I was like, the sword is on the table. I haven't touched it. She goes, no, your thumb. I was like, on my hand. And the guy who was conducting the lesson goes, does anybody have super glue? I was like, I didn't break the katana. He's like, no, I'm just gonna super glue your thumb back together. And I was like, it's on my thumb, it's just bleeding a bit. But in World War II, they created super glue to expedite the healing process, because it does work. It heals your thumb back together. Anyway, long story short, after the whole lesson, my thumb had finally started to seal, and the super glue is not tacky anymore. I'd gotten the blood cleaned off my hands, so I didn't look like I killed 12 children. And I made another comment in the panel. I was like, guys, don't worry, it's just a flesh wound. Nothing. And I was like, all right. No Lord of the Rings, no Monty Python with this group. Got it. So then he says, I finished the class, and I was like, I'm so sorry, by the way, for being the worst VIP guest in your panel ever. And he was like, no, it's no big deal, but here, I have to give you this. In Japanese culture, if a sword cuts you, it's bit you, and it is yours. And I said, hold on a second. I was like, so, like Harry Potter, like the wand chose me. Again, nothing. I was like, I hate today. I'm bleeding, and no one's laughing at my jokes, please. And so I then have this sword that I have to figure out how to wield, because obviously I suck at it. And so the guy told me, he's like, well, I know the guy who's the villain in all the Mortal Kombat movies, and so he might be willing to teach you. So that would be cool. And if that happens, I will create a little web series so that everybody can watch the journey of my katana nature, because I'm sure it's going to be a barrel of laughs. So yeah, no, I'm not good with a katana, but I have one that can cut through a car door. So steer clear.
Don't want her switching that around. I've never done any sword work, but I haven't cut my thumb off either. So
have you held a katana for
she has more experience than I do.
Okay, and then my small favor was, this is my little brother, and he is a major Kirito and Asuna fan, and it's his birthday. And maybe you guys can voice act while singing happy birthday to him. What's your name? Mikey.
Sure, I don't know if Kirito can sing.
Come on, he can sing.
This is going to be really difficult.
You start?
Sure. Yeah.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Mikey. Happy birthday to you.
Wow, Kirito really wants to can sing. Wish I could sing
The
like
soundtrack
that.
for 16.5.
All right. Hey.
Hey. Alright, so I have a question for you. Since you finished Sword Art Online, the sub, so episode 10, when they before they did the kissing scene, so you just did the you just sang for them in their voice acting. So I want to do the dialogue before they did the kissing scene.
If I had the script, it would help a lot.
It's me.
Smartphones. Come on, you got a phone up there.
If you want to like step to the side and find it, I'd be happy to do it, but I don't know if we're gonna be able to find it.
I will say that, like, as soon as those scenes were mixed, I don't know if Alex told you, but he came up to me and goes, "Those sound real." Like, I was like, watching an interview, and I was like, "Oh, good." I guess if we had a script.
Yeah, I totally couldn't pull that one out of my head.
Can you at least do the Starburst streamer line? The Starburst streamer line, when you say that?
Oh man, that's just like one of his epic screams. So,
Do it.
okay. I still have to talk throughout the weekend, or else I would do it. But look, I talked to. I'll just say a quick story about this line and about all the epic screams throughout recording. I met the Japanese director, and I asked him about the screaming, and he said, well, the Japanese actor screamed so loud that he got nosebleeds.